find out if you're ready for love. Here's your marvelous host, Nikki Lee.
Hello, and welcome to Ready for Love Radio. This is your host and love coach, Nikki Lee. Now, parents and aunts and uncles and other family members, if your child or your niece or your nephew or your grandchild came to you and said, when I decide to transition, I need you to support me, or would you support me? What would be your reaction? Could be a tough question, couldn't it? Would you be okay with that? Would you wonder what they were talking about, or if they knew what they were talking about? Would you run to find Google and go, I don't know what they mean? Would you try to find a support group and hope they can help you? Would you grab your child and go, what? You know, everybody may have a different reaction to that. Actually, I'm pretty sure most people would have a, personal reaction to that. My guest today had her daughter, and I'm going to apologize now. I am probably going to say daughter or son at the wrong time, and I'm going to apologize right now in case I get that wrong. But had her daughter say that very thing to her at, I believe it was 11. And again, she said something very similar to her at 15. And today, we are going to talk to her, and she's going to share what she calls Our Transgender Journey, which is also the title of her book. And we're going to find out why she put it in a book form, and basically we're going to find out about her story. So, Christina, it is great to have you with me today.
Nikki, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Have I messed up yet?
No.
Okay.
And it's okay. It takes time to get the pronouns right and the timing right. So I am not offended. It's just like my son says, Mom, as long as people are trying, I'm okay with that. I'm saying to you, as long as you're trying, I'm okay with that.
Like I said, I've been all morning now. Well, that's why I wanted to read this morning. I said I want this fresh in my mind when we go through this, so that I got the daughter, son. Yeah, so I've got this straight. But I'm it's not going to be intentional. But I'm saying right now, I'm probably going to get this wrong at some point before we get through this entire show. So
that's okay.
Please apologize for saying that it's not intentional. I swear I'm trying.
Right.
Okay. So, hey, I get my information wrong. So it's not personal. Okay. So first of all, let's tell people, why are you sharing your story? Because this is personal. This is personal for you and for Sam. So see, if I just say Sam, then I'm good. I'm covered with that. Why are you sharing this story with folks?
Because it's a very common story. There are kids today, even adults today, who transition. It's been in the news a lot. Celebrity parents, celebrity children have transitioned, are transitioning. There's more and more of it in the news. My reasons for doing it were totally personal. As you said, my daughter sent me a text at 11, and I don't remember the beginning of it, but the end of it said, I hope you will support me in my transition. I looked at it, I'm like, what is she talking about? And I distinctly remember it was the same year that Bruce Jenner transitioned to Caitlyn Jenner. So I just figured that, because it was on the news 24/7. You could not escape.
Oh, yeah.
It. Right. I just figured she's playing with her friends. They were talking. That's what it was. Life went on.
Right.
Like you said, at 15, I got another text. This time I was driving. I was out. I was working. It said, I want to take hormones. No, I'm sorry, I want to take testosterone. I'm like, okay. My mind went back. I'm like, oh, wow, this is what she meant. I said, okay. So I waited until I got home, and usually she says, "Hey, Mom," when I come in the house. First thing she said was, "Did you get my text?" And I said, "Yes, I did." "Okay, I don't know anything about this. I need some time to look into it. I'll get back to you." At that point, she said, "Well, hurry up." So I gave her what we call the side eye and held my finger up and was like, "You need to chill, okay?" And then I did what I had to do. So that's why I wrote my story, because people need to understand this is very common. These kids are minors. They need help. And as a parent or aunt or uncle, like you said, or grandparent, it's your I don't want to say duty because I don't want to offend anybody. You need to help your child or help the child.
Well, and your reaction makes good sense, because it's the kind of, you don't just jump into anything this big. You needed to do your research.
Oh, God, yes.
And even hearing about Bruce Jenner's story all over the news, that doesn't give you the answer for you and your family and your daughter.
Correct.
Just hearing whatever the media is putting out there doesn't answer personal questions, and that doesn't tell you what I would think you want to know, because who cares what Bruce Jenner's doing, or I mean, even, I don't remember the time frame between that and when things were going on with, Brad Pitt and Shiloh and all them, but none of that makes any difference. You need to know, for your own peace of mind and for your daughter and her well-being, the details. And there's a lot of details to find out about all this stuff.
Right.
And
you're right.
So, getting the details and finding out, and I mean, even I loved your post with the terminology, just figuring out the words. You gotta learn the vocabulary first. So there is a lot to learn for all this kind of stuff. So I was looking at that going, you got to figure out what words to even use before you can do all this other stuff. So yes, very, very true. Definitely. Well, and I say a lot of times too on here, when you're facing a big decision of some kind, or something you need to learn about, or something you need to work through, journal about it, And I love that you did this, and you basically journaled about it on a blog, and that way you're putting it out there and you can get feedback about it, and then you took your blog and you turned it into a book. Great idea. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, because I knew that, first of all, I need to be able to process and understand for myself, like you said, because I just didn't know. And also, in someone thinking ahead, I'm like, okay, I have 2 sisters, a brother, friends, family members. Renee was in school. People knew I had a child. I just didn't want to have to tell this story over and over 10, 15, 20, a million times. I said, you know what? Let me just do a blog, and that way people can keep up. They'll know what's going on. Then once we finally got to where we needed to be, I'm like, okay, we've quote unquote arrived. No need to keep this, but I didn't want to get rid of all the content because it was helpful for me. It was therapeutic for me. And there are still people who we hadn't met yet, who I hadn't seen in years, who knew I had a daughter, didn't know I had a son. So I said, you know what? Let me just put it somewhere. Then a couple of days later, I'm like, you know what? Let me turn this into a book, and that's what I did.
Very good. I see it. I tell people to do that.
You never know what will happen with that journal.
Exactly. It does work. I'm actually going to do one of those and do it backwards and write a book out of something I should have journaled about. But very good. I actually, after a big medical thing, I actually was going to journal, and I just went ahead and did it all at one time, and did write a book. So, and then now I'm going to expand it into a bigger book. But I completely understand to you. Were there signs earlier that this was coming? Was this completely out of the blue? Now, there was the the one message at 11, but did you really, was that kind of an early thing and you really figured more was coming later, or did you just kind of put it out of your mind at that point?
Well, I put it out of my mind because I didn't know what she meant. And I barely had maybe a thread connection to transgender, but I'm like, no, that's not what she means. I was somewhat surprised at that because I thought maybe she was gay. Growing up, she liked girls' clothes. Oh, here's the biggest thing I'm like, duh, should have had a V8. You hit your head. So when she was 4, it was Halloween. I'm like, hey, what do you do for Halloween? Well, everybody's familiar with Dora the Explorer. Well, Dora has a cousin named Diego. She wanted to be Diego for Halloween.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, well, sure, I had to find a costume, but we did that. And then over the years, she wore dresses, she wore skirts, she wanted to play flag football as a young child, as 8 or 9. They won a championship that year. It was a boys and girls team flag football. There'd be times when she and I would be out, and she'd open the door for everybody. I'm like, why are you doing that? Let them open their own door. You have to hold it for everybody. For a few people, fine. Or people would say, she used to wear her hair in braids or sister locks. It's similar to braids. And people would say, oh, thank you, young man. I'm like, that's a girl. And she wouldn't say anything because she would wear the boy shorts and the tops, or even when she would wear the girls' clothes, she would still hold the door. But people wouldn't say thank you, young man, because she was wearing like a pink or orange or yellow. So over time, I figured, she's just gay, not a big deal. She wanted to go. We went to Old Navy one year. She wanted to shop on the boys' side. I'm like, okay, fine. She likes boys' clothes. So I just figured she was gay and thought nothing of it. So in a way, the transgender portion was a surprise to me.
Okay. Now, see, I've always been a tomboy completely.
Exactly. Exactly.
But, I'm really straight. Okay. and not a doubt in my mind, and I've always been into cars and football and I've been right there under the hood of the car with guy friends working on stuff, and since I was a kid, and I never had any doubt about anything else and that kind of thing. And I'm of course I'm substantially older than your daughter, probably older than you, but but I keep hearing all these stories now about kids, and I'm like, okay, that was my childhood, So it's interesting how it's changed so much, the perception of this kind of thing, because I still hold the door for people when we go places, and I do that for men and for women, and I've always done that. And I'm 6'1". Okay, so I shop in the men's side of the store because women's clothes don't fit me. So they just make men's clothes longer than they make women's clothes. So it's amusing. It was amusing now. It wasn't when I was younger, but it's interesting. It was irritating when I was a kid, but But the funny thing is, and everybody may not know this, but women's shirts and men's shirts actually button opposite of one another.
Yeah.
And I learned that, a long time ago when people go, why do your shirts button weird? I'm like, because they're more expensive.
All right.
Because I didn't want to admit that they were men's shirts, but whatever. Whatever. But, but interesting. And just like I said, it just it's interesting. So I hear some of these stories, and I'm like, that was my childhood, but okay.
Yeah, and you're right, because I would be outside, with the boys, playing. I grew up in a city we call it dead block, where it's like a hopscotch thing in the street, or I think it's a circle, and you have to shoot a checker across the skull and crossbones. You want to get on the other side. I come in, my mother's like, okay, why are you dirty? I know you're outside playing with those boys again. And my father would be like, look, she's having fun. Leave her alone,
Yeah.
Or, just that kind of stuff. Not a big deal. Or we play stickball. Girls and boys play stickball. So, right, thought nothing of it. Again, just a tomboy. But with Renee, obviously, it was more to it than that.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. So, how did you manage things? And poor thing, it was right before COVID hit us too. So, how did you manage things for Sam with school? Because that's a whole a whole can of worms.
Yeah, it is. When she was in middle school, there was some of this behavior, this depression started, and she'd go to the office because she would threaten suicide in school. And once kids do that, they call you right away. They don't care where you are. You need to get yourself here and take your child home or to get some help. So she did that once, and someone overheard and reported it. Her grades were failing, starting in middle school here is 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Her grades were starting to go down in 8th grade, and then in high school they were going down even more. And, then when she told me this, I'm like, okay. So I tried to address things with the school, and the school was like, look, ma'am, things will be fine. We have done this before. And one of her counselors said, I had a child transition when she was in elementary school. She graduated 2 years ago. She said, she graduated 2 years ago. She said, so we know how to handle this. And she was right. There were no issues with names or pronouns or bathrooms, whole other story. But the school was very, very supportive. And before we started to do the little things to help Renee transition to Sam, grades were failing, and his other counselor was there, was very supportive. She would do what needed to get done, what he needed to do to get his work done. She would work with the teacher. So I must say, school was a blessing, because they handled things that I didn't know what to do, how to handle. They were like they say it takes a village. They were my village in some cases, because Sam would listen to them and not to me when it came to schoolwork. So I had a really good experience with school. So I know some parents don't, but we had a really good experience with school. So there were no real issues. My only issue with school was the bathrooms, as I mentioned. So with the bathrooms, of course, I'm going to use the boys' bathroom. I'm like, oh, Lord Jesus, please don't let this child use the boys' bathroom, because, in the district, she had been with these kids from first grade. So for the most part, some of them knew her. But when you go to the high school, it's a mixture, middle school and high school, a mixture of all 5 elementary schools. So some kids didn't know. And my biggest fear, Nikki, was that there would be some kids in the bathroom who'd be like, hey, I heard, you used to be a girl, and just start trouble and maybe start some fights. And I pleaded with him not to use a boys' bathroom. He said, no, it'll be fine. I reached out to the school support, and the school was like, we can't, the school, all they said was, the child is allowed to use the bathroom that they feel most comfortable in. And the counselor's like, I know this isn't what you want to hear, but this is a school rule. And she also said, we do have, when the kids change classes, we do have adults outside the bathrooms, because we know kids congregate in there. She said, if that gives you any comfort, that's what we do. And also she said, a lot of the kids use the nurse's bathroom, because some of the kids, whether they're gay, straight, transgender, don't feel comfortable using the communal bathroom. So the kids are always allowed to use a nurse's bathroom. But Sam said, well, that's all the way on the 1st floor. I'm on the 3rd floor. And one time I said, you know what, then you need to just hold it, okay? Because you're not going to walk. You just hold it till you get home. But thankfully, there were no issues in the bathrooms, and he was always safe in the bathroom. And, again, the school was there, so I'm very thankful for that.
And what was your comment? There's no soft surface in the bathroom?
Exactly. Right. And I said to him, you know what? You go into the bathroom. I said, there's no soft surfaces in there. If some kid decides to jump you or give you a hard time, they're going to smash your head against whatever's there. And that's not good. Of course, well, I'll be fine. So I just said, and I said, you know what? I just pray if anything happens to you, you can recover from it. And I ended the conversation.
I read that and I went, she's right. I never thought about that, but she's right.
There's
I said, well, no, wait a second. There's the water, but yeah, that's not good either. Oh, it's not funny, but it was funny in the moment.
Yeah.
So,
no, I agree.
There were just little moments I was reading through it, and it was just little things just hit me funny, but for like silly reasons, you know. But I could feel your frustration. That was like the little moments. I'm like, that's cute comeback though. Cute comeback. Sometimes you need just those little moments of levity, you know, when things are tense, you know. So how were Sam's friends? Let me back up first. Okay. So the depression, was that before telling you about wanting to transition, or while waiting as the process was all going on and the meetings with the counselor and deciding what to do, or when was the depression happening?
The depression was after age 11. So the depression, okay, my guess is the depression was part of not knowing what was going on with him or her at the time, not knowing how to verbalize it, because, you know, she went to her eighth grade dance. You know, we went and got a dress, and, you know, she asked for makeup, and we got, you know, low heel shoes, and we went with her friends. They all got their dresses, and, you know, and looking back, I'm thinking, oh, and what's so ironic is the boy that went with her, he was gay, but he didn't know how to tell his parents. So Renee was his beard, so to speak. So that was a whole nother.
They both kind of knew, and they went with each other because it was safe.
Right.
And it was kind of letting the public say, okay, we're a boy and girl going together, but we know nothing's going to happen because we're not interested in each other. Right.
So she asked for makeup. We did all that. But I think the depression was during that time, Nikki, because I just feel as though that, looking back, she was depressed because, again, she didn't know how to verbalize it. She didn't know what was going on. She didn't know what to say. You know, I was on her about school. You know, her attitude was poor, and just she was snappy when I would say ask a question, or I would say ask a question, and her answer, and I'm like, okay, so I'm the problem. I'm asking you a legitimate question. I'm the problem. It was just a lot of teenage stuff, but more than that, because, you know, kids can be rude sometimes. And I said to her, I am your mother. You are not going to talk to me that way. And I would say that a lot of times, and then I would punish her for stuff. You know, I took her out of she loved band. I took her out of band one year because her grades weren't good and she was rude. So the depression was during all of that time, and it kicked in. It kicked in when she got her period. And what I have since learned from the doctor is that transgender kids, when they start going through puberty of the sex that they are, it's a problem. Because they feel as though, no, that's not who I am. Why is this happening to me? So when she started going through puberty, the depression kicked in, and it was just a bunch of stuff. And, you know, that's how that's how that started. That's how we got that's how we got there. And then once we started treatment, you know, he became more of a normal person. You ever hear the saying, you may love someone, but you don't like them?
Yes.
I didn't like her for a couple of years, I have to say, because of all this behavior, all this BS going on. But again, I didn't know what was going on, and neither did she. And once we got where we needed to be, he was the same loving, sweet, happy person that I knew before all this started.
Well, and you know, too, before like 11, 12, 13, your body is more neutral, you know? Mm-hmm. And neutral is not a good word. Like, you just can't think of a better one.
I know what you mean.
But it's not developed at that point, you know? But it starts to develop more after that, and the quote-unquote sex that you are, you know, biologically, starts to develop and become more obvious, and like you said, at that point, puberty starts to, I can't talk, starts to kick in periods and all that kind of thing, So it's easier in quotation marks, to your body. Okay, if you don't feel like the gender that your body is, it probably wouldn't be as bad before all that, but it would probably feel like your body's mocking you once you start to hit puberty, So okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. Hadn't thought about it that way, but that actually makes sense.
And that's what was happening.
Okay. All right. See, I'm learning, kind of putting it all together. All right. Interesting. All right. I think it's interesting that at 11, her and the boy that were, it's fascinating they put all that together and worked that out, though. Okay. So how were Sam's friends reacting during this time?
His friends, a lot of his friends didn't know what was going on either.
Okay.
But once we started, once I knew we were on the path to transition, he kept some friends. He lost some friends. Right. And I said, honey, let me tell you something. Friend groups change throughout your life. I said, the friends you had in elementary school, you don't have all them now, all those people. I said, your acquaintances, you're no longer friends. I said, the friends you had in middle school, some of them y'all are still friends, some you're not. And in high school, some friends, some are not. And I said, even as an adult, I went to college. Some friends I had then, I don't have anymore. Okay? I said, and as you have different jobs throughout your life, some friends you keep, some friends you don't. I said, so it's not a big deal, because friend groups change. And he understood that. One friend came back. She came back. So, because he had said in the beginning, no, Mom, she's having a hard time with my transition. I said, that's okay. Her mother still loves you. Her mother still reaches out. Maybe at some point she'll come around. And she did.
Right.
Yeah, some friends he lost. But, like I said, friend groups change. Let's move on. That's
true. Well, and when you go through any kind of a major change in your life, and this is major, you find out the people that are really there to support you. Whether it's friends, family, whatever. So I see it as a screening process, and I went through this with some major hoops. And you find out who is there for you. Which is it's important to know. It's important to know who you can really count on and who you can't. So okay. So speaking of family, how this is always a fun question. How did your family react?
My family was okay. I'm 2 of 4. I have an older, for the most part, I have an older brother and 2 younger sisters. So the sister next to me is a special ed teacher. The sister younger than me, she just has a regular job. And, I kind of told them about it as was going on. I confided more in a girlfriend of mine. And, once things started coming out, they were fine. Like, for instance, my sister next to me, Sam wanted to stop. He wanted a binder. He wanted to start wearing bras. And I said, no, we're not doing a binder till we get some professional help, because I realized that binders need to be fit. They need to be fitted like a bra. So my sister said, look, why don't you just wear a sports bra, some that are really tight. He liked that idea, and that's what he started wearing. So my sister and her husband had no issues. My sister, the other younger sister, she and her family had no issues. Her husband would keep using the old name, and his kids are the one that said, Dad, you can't keep using that name. You can't keep using the name Renee. His name is Sam. So he finally came around. his parents, because we all go over there for holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas dinners, his parents, my sister said his mother asked her a few questions. Then when she explained it, she was good. My mother at the time was in her 80s. She's now 91. She was just happy that we weren't arguing anymore. Okay?
There is that.
that was a brass ring for her. She lives with us. She's been with us for about 5 years. She was just happy that, they're not arguing no more. I am happy with that. But my sister, who's a special ed teacher, had to kind of break it down for her, and she was okay. Now, my brother, his question was, well, I don't understand. Sam will always be biologically a girl. I said, that's true. I said, but here's the thing. That's not how he feels. I said, think about how you would feel if someone told you weren't a man, or if you felt like, you weren't a man, you were a girl. He's like, well, that's crazy. I said, exactly. It's crazy. Sam feels like a boy, and that's who he is. So we had more conversations. He's like, you know what? I don't understand. I said, you know what? Sometimes we don't understand things. I said, as long as you don't disrespect my child, that's all I care about. And he doesn't, and he hasn't. We were on our way one year to my sister in Virginia. Sam, my other sister, and my brother drove with his fiance. We were on our way to my sister's and her husband's for like a weekend just to hang out in Virginia. It was after COVID was starting to lift, so we wanted to go somewhere. So in the car, Sam said, Uncle, I have a question for you. He's like, sure. So, he said to him, well, what if I, try to kill myself because I want to be a boy and nobody would let me? He said, well, I wouldn't want that. Sam said, okay, so that's how I feel. I was depressed and I wanted to kill myself sometime, and, I just wasn't happy. So he's like, oh, well, I'm sorry you thought that way. Are you okay now? And Sam said, yeah, because I know I'm a boy now. He's like, okay. So Sam said, do you still love me? He said, yes. He said, pinky swear? He said, yes, pinky swear. He's like, can't reach back now because I'm driving, but yes, pinky swear. So he came around. There's still some issues here and there, but I don't call him on it anymore because, like I said, as long as you don't disrespect my son, I'm okay with it. Sam's birthday is St. Patrick's Day, so I texted my brother and said, hey, did you wish Sam happy birthday? Oh, text me her information. So I wrote back, her in capital letters? You mean his in capital letters, exclamation, question. He said, yeah, oh yeah. And he texted him later on that day. So yeah. I don't know what his problem is. I don't care what his problem is. Again, as long as he doesn't disrespect my son, that's all I care about.
Well, some people, it takes them a little longer.
Yeah. I guess.
So, where did you go to get the help and support that you needed? Because I can't imagine you didn't need some help and support to get this all kind of sorted out and figure out what was going on.
Right. Well, a couple things. First of all, that night when I got the text about needing testosterone, I just Googled. Like, transgender, transgender health, and two things came up. One thing that came up was a list of allies. So, people who support the LGBT community. And one of the numbers on there, put names and phone numbers, one of the numbers was my area code that I recognized. I'm like, ooh, let me call her. So I called the mother. So I said to her, I told her what's going on, and I'm crying. She's like, okay, first of all, take a deep breath. She's like, I know what you're going through, and I will help you. So she went on to tell me that her son transitioned to female when she was in college, and she said it was hard because she was away from the family, and they wanted to help. She said, but she wanted to do it on her own. And she said, they found her the support she needed. They found her support as a family. She had surgery and everything. And she said, it was a challenge, but we got through it. She said, one of the biggest things that helped us, she said, in Philadelphia, every year, there's a transgender conference. She said, it's huge. It's like 4 days. And she said, it's free. You need to go to that. I said, okay. I reached out to her I think it was June. The conference was in August. I Googled it. I found it. I signed up. In the meantime, another thing that came up from a Google search was the Children's Hospital here has a gender and sexuality clinic. I'm like, oh, okay. So went on their website, found out what to do, contacted a few folks. You do this huge intake form. It took us 2 months to get in. Finally got in, and we met Dr. Happy. I love this woman, okay? She's co-director. Right, she's co-director of the clinic. She's co-director of the clinic, and she meets with you. You have 3 sessions, 2 hours each session. So the first half hour is you, second half hour is a child, third half hour is the 2 of you together, fourth half hour, she gives you her diagnosis. So after our 3 sessions, she uses a traffic light. She uses a traffic light method. Yellow, the child may be trans. There's something else going on there. Red, absolutely not. Green, yes, they are. She diagnosed Sam as green after our 3rd session. She said, no, there's no doubt. Yes, he is trans. I said, okay. So then she said, here's what I like to do. She said, I believe in what I call small happies. She said, I don't do anything that's not reversible in the beginning. So
I love
she said,
that.
Yeah, I know, because she said, she said, I'm good at what I do. She said, but sometimes things surprise me. So the first thing we did was stop the period. Because, again, Renee had some depression, and I know the period was, like you said, your body tells you one thing because that's how you were biologically born, but your mind tells you something else. She stopped the period, totally reversible. Went back again. She had Sam try on some binders, and at that point I was okay because Dr. Happy and I talked about the binder in front of Sam, how you use it, blah, blah, blah. So she gave him a binder, and I bought a few more. We were good. After that, we had another meeting, and Sam talked about testosterone. And I'm like, Dr. Happy said, Sam, tell you what, let's live with the period stopping. Let's live with the binder for a little while. Then you and your mom revisit this in a few months, talk about testosterone. And I agreed to that, and Sam agreed to that. So also at this transgender conference, when I finally went, Nikki, it is 4 days of thousands of people, and there's breakout rooms with sessions about legality, children, adults, insurance, immigration, disability, and everything you want to know about being in the transgender space, they have it. It's like 5 or 6 sessions every hour for 8 hours. It is overwhelming, but it is the place to go. In the meantime, you walk around the exhibit hall. There are people exhibiting their wares, okay? So I walked by this one table, was a lady sitting there by herself with just some 2x5 cards. I said, oh, what are you here for? She said, well, I have a support group. I live in, she named the town. I'm like, oh, my God, you're like 4 or 5 minutes from me. Can I join your group? So I told her what was going on. She said, yeah, please. So I joined the group. I have never looked back. We meet monthly now via Zoom. I don't miss a meeting. That support group is that's where I go for my therapy. I'm in a good place now. Like for about 6 months, I haven't needed the support, but I still go to help other parents to give back. And also we talk about things that our kids are doing in general, because every meeting new parents show up. Some have minor children, some have adults, or they just don't know where to turn.
Right.
So I'm a faithful member. Every month I'm there, and that's where I go for my support. Also, when Sam was in therapy for the depression, we had many therapists because therapists come and go. They leave the practice or they stop taking your insurance, various reasons. And 2 of his therapists would schedule a half-hour session with me, which I was very grateful for because, again, I had questions I needed answered from, in terms of what's going on with him and me. Now, he was still a minor, so that they weren't supposed to disclose what was going on, but, they did because, he's a minor and I need to know what's going on. A couple of them be like, no, I cannot tell you what's going on. So I was happy when they disappeared. Either they didn't take our insurance anymore or they moved. But a couple of them were very understanding, and they told me what was going on. So the combination of my support group his therapist is how I got my therapy, how I still get my therapy.
Understandable. So, where it's never underestimate the impact of a really good support group, because I tell you, I had never had one or really felt that I needed one, but I tell you what, it's amazing for certain situations how beneficial they can be. Wow. Just wow. So where did you go to get help for Sam?
Well, since I didn't know what was going on we had the depression, we just went to regular therapy. Regular therapy, and they didn't know at that time. But as things went on, they started to understand. And also, Dr. Happy did therapy with him for the half hour that he was with her. And because I would say to him, look, let's say, the hospital has all kinds of support groups for teens. No, I don't want to do that. Okay. I said, why? I just don't, I don't want to. Okay, fine. And then, so the therapists, once they knew what was going on, were there for him for therapy. So between the regular therapist and Dr. Happy's 3 sessions, which is not a lot, but the regular therapy, he was okay. And I think most of it is that, Nikki, once he finally came all the way out and we were doing things to help him come out, he was okay. I think the bottleneck was, not knowing what was going on, and I need help, and I don't know what's going on. I need help. And once that was resolved, he was good.
Right. Well, if that was the situation and that was the problem, one of the things I talk about on here is being your authentic self. Mm-hmm. As long as you are in any kind of a situation, denying yourself and not being true to yourself, you're going to have issues. Okay, so whatever way you're not being true to yourself. So I can see that. Mm-hmm. Makes good sense. Like I said, I've got quite a few different shows about being true to yourself and your authentic self and that kind of thing. So maybe
yeah,
I would think it applies in that way as much as any other way, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's there's hadn't thought about it that way, but it makes sense. I love how I get into these shows and it's like the brain kind of goes, hey. I warned you about that. Yeah, you never know what 2 things are going to connect when I'm doing one of these. So, okay. So now nitty-gritty question. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right. So now for parents, aunts and uncles, godparents, grandparents that are listening, what tips, after this whole journey that you and formerly Renee, now Sam, have been on, what tips can you offer to others that face the same thing with their child or niece or nephew or grandchild or whoever?
2 things. The first is your dreams are not their dreams. Okay?
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I saw that. It's highlighted. It's highlighted in my copy of the book.
Yeah, and the second thing is, I learned from Dr. Happy, follow your child's lead. They will tell you how much they want to do and when they want to do it.
I highlighted both of those passages.
Mm-hmm. And look,
turn down the corner.
I'm not naive. I understand this is tough for some people. I totally get it. I see it in my support. I'm in a second support group because one of his doctors wanted me to join to help out. I see this in the support group, especially my newer support group, because there was a woman talking the other day saying that her son is 14 And her husband, the son's father, is totally against him transitioning. And she has brought out every argument she knows. You know, he can be suicidal. He's not happy. And the husband's just like, no. When he's 18, he can make his own decisions. Not right now. And she's totally frustrated. It's not healthy for the child because, again, these kids can be suicidal. You know, I've seen that in my own child. You know, fortunately, he didn't have to go there, but he would threaten it. And, you know, one of the doctors said, he's not suicidal. He's just saying that because, you know, he's just saying that. I said, well, thank goodness for that. I'll take that. But some of these kids are suicidal, and you don't want that. You know, you don't want them cutting. You don't want them using drugs. You don't want them falling into unacceptable sexual behavior because you're not letting them transition. You know, hear what they have to say. And again, there are things you can do, like Dr. Happy says. There are things you can do that are totally reversible. If they feel if you feel as though this isn't what they want, chances are it's what they want. But there are things that can be done that are not permanent. And also get in a support group or get to some therapy. Again, this is not about you. It's about your child. And I promise you, once you get to the other side of this, you will see the same person they were before the transition, the same personality, they're the same person, just in a different gender. So those are three things I tell people. Again, I know it's not easy, but you've got to do what's right for the child.
Yeah. This is true. Well, I tell you, you really, no joke, I highlighted both of those things that you said. They are highlighted and the page is turned down.
Good.
I love that. See, we're in sync. Well, and this is so funny. There's only, things that really jump out at me, I always highlight so I can find them again.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked, I did. Let me see, what else did I, because I highlighted that. And then, well, in the thing where it says that if people wanted to argue and you said, my opinion and my Christian walk are what counts here, because you're right, it's your blog, and I liked that one. And about Dr. Happy and the things that are not reversible. And I agree with you. If the parent has, you've actually changed my opinion on a couple things.
Okay, good.
Which it's not easy to change my opinion about stuff. I like the idea, and I actually came to that before you said it as we were talking, which that's kind of amazing. I agree about the child making the decision after 18. I like that idea. But I also like Dr. Happy's thing about the small happies and some of the things that could be done before they're 18. Okay? And I really like what they did with Sam about being on birth control and using a binder. That way, those things, and like I said, I even came to the realization about the whole, the body doing the things that, like I said, basically your body is mocking you. There's no way around that, when you're going into puberty, and that's got to make it harder. If you're having these feelings and you're like, this isn't me, and your body, okay, having a period is a big enough pain in the neck, right?
Amen, sister.
We all know this. As far as I'm concerned, thank goodness for menopause. But anyway, that's a whole other ballgame. It amazes me that people do that. I'm like, gosh, bring it on, bring it on. But anyway, like I said, that's a whole other show. But I told you I was nuts. Anyway, but go ahead and stop that. Okay, so the kid's not dealing with this. Okay, and then not having to deal with, having boobs in your face every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see how that would help. So you're not dealing with that, because developing and having to deal with bras and boobs and all this, as you're a kid, that's a pain too. And if you don't want to have them, that's got to be even worse. It just does. If you're a girl and you want them, that's one thing. But
yeah,
I like
you're right. You're right. And just an aside, I haven't
the open flow of ideas is going through my head, and what I just got to share. But anyway,
and aside, I have a niece who she's like, all she ever wanted was boobs. That's all she ever wanted. She's in her 20s now. She just had breast implants. Okay. Because she said she said she was disappointed when she got her period because her boobs didn't come in the way she wanted. So she said, I told myself, when I get a job, I'm going to get implants, and she did. But anyway, so some people like their boobs. Yeah, and another thing with Sam having boobs was that he wasn't showering like he should. Now, I get it. Teenagers don't shower a lot, okay? I don't understand that. I know I wasn't that way, but that happens. And we would have these battles about, why don't you get your butt in the shower? No, I don't want to. So what I found out through Dr. Happy is that he didn't like his body. Again, speaking of boobs, he didn't like he didn't want to look at it. So
right, that's what I thought. Okay.
Right. So her tips were, wear a white T-shirt, shower with that, or take a shower at night, keep the lights off, or play music in the bathroom. But of course, none of those work for him. Well, no, those don't work. You just didn't try them. Let's just be honest.
Right.
So if I got her to stop the period, I was halfway to happy, because again, you, not to be disrespectful to any men who are listening, but when you have your period, you need to shower on a regular basis. And the fact that he wasn't doing that added to some of the problems.
Added to the funk, right?
That's the bottom line, yes. Funk up in here.
Sam's going to be so glad he wasn't on the show.
Yeah.
Oh, well, and teen guys just don't like to shower. So maybe
I've heard that. Yeah, maybe he developed that as a boy too. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so oh, guys are going to pick on me about this. Okay, so how is Sam today? Other than how he's not going to like me after he listens to this. Okay.
No, he's great. So because his grades were not good enough, because from 9th to 12th grade there's an average, and because 9th and 10th grade tanked, 11th, 12th grade were good, but they weren't good enough. He didn't get into college, but he's gone to community college, which he's very happy about. Yep, he loves it. He wants to be a music therapist because he's very good at music. Yeah, he was in all the bands in school. He's very talented. He loves kids. They love him. He's like, the go-to babysitter on the block. He plays with the kids, gets down at their level and plays with them. So he's at community college being a music therapist. In 2 years, he will transfer to a 4-year college. Our relationship is great. There's one entry in the book called A Happy Mother's Day, finally, because for years it was just like, oh my God, can I please have one day of peace? No arguments, no attitude, nothing. And then once, we started transition, the testosterone and everything else, he's the same sweet, loving person he was prior to all this. So our relationship is in a good place. I work from home. He'll come sit in the room with me sometime. I'm like, dude, I'm working. I know. I just want to sit here. He'll come sit in the room with me sometimes, or, he'll want to do things with me sometime, which is unusual for a 19-year-old. But no, right. we're in a good place, so I'm very thankful for that.
Interesting. Do you think that you're closer now than you were before?
I'd say yes. Mm-hmm. We were close before. Like there's 3 sections: the pre-transition, not knowing what to do, and post-transition. We were close pre-transition, But yeah, I agree. I think we're closer now. Because don't forget, he's older now. He's 19.
Right.
You know, so
Right.
he sees things differently now, and I see things differently with him and for him now.
Right. Right. Interesting. All right. So how can people find you or contact you?
Well, I have a website. It's called, well, first of all, I have a book. A book is called Our Transgender Journey, available on Amazon. I have a website, Our Transgender Journey. There's a contact section on it, or they can email me, Christina at ourtransgenderjourney.com. So my Gmail address is in the book because the website came after the book, but either way, it'll reach me. And if people just want to talk, if they want to get some suggestions, they need an ear, because trust me, when I first reached out to the woman in my area whose son transitioned in college, when I went to my first support group, my first meeting with Dr. Happy, all I did was cry, okay? And people would say, that's why we have tissues. That's why we have tissues here, because I just didn't know what to do. So if they just need someone to listen to them, to cry, I am here. You know, I'm happy to help anybody out because I totally understand.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's interesting timing. I was watching an episode of the TV show Bull last night. I don't know if you've ever watched it. No. And one of the characters is Chunk. And Chunk is a gay character in the show. And his mother was coming to visit, and he really wanted to introduce his boyfriend to his mom. But he felt that his mom didn't approve of him being a gay man. And it was because of the expression that she had on her face when he came out to her. And so in this episode, she was visiting, and he says, I'd really like to share all parts of my life, but you don't approve of me being gay, so I can't. And so she slammed the door and left the room. And then she came back in, and she says, you think I don't approve? Why? Why do you feel that way? And so he said it was because of her expression. And she says, that's not why I look that way. She says, I was concerned for you. She says, you were having a rough time anyway, and I was concerned and I was afraid for you that you were making your life more difficult. And then they had the big hugging moment and all that kind of thing, and he introduced her boyfriend and that kind of thing. So it can be very confusing between family members and that kind of thing. So it's, you know, parents may have a concern initially, but open the lines of communication between you and your child, you know, and get these things out in the open and you know, support. Let your child know that you support them. Right.
Right. And there's one part in the book I mentioned where I didn't realize this. Sam told me this afterwards. He had a girlfriend, and I think we were arguing about something, and I don't recall. He said something to me about, you know, part of the reason I was so rude and nasty all the time because I was afraid. I said, afraid of what? I was afraid that when I came out, you would kick me out. I'm like, I would never kick you out. He said, well, you know, my girlfriend told me if she kicks you out, you can come live with me. He said, so, you know, that's what made things all better, knowing he had a place to live. Because that's a very real fear for some kids in the trans space, even the gay space, that their parents, because you hear those stories. During Christmas, I see the commercial, you know, they're asking for money to help kids who have been kicked out of their homes, you know, who are homeless. It's a very real fear. And, you know, you don't want your child feeling that way. You know, and, I mean, even if you, I can't imagine kicking my child out of my house. I'm not even going to go there. But, you know, they want to feel safe like everybody else. They want to feel loved like everybody else. And he knows my biggest concern is his safety. You know, that's why I don't use our real names in the book. You know, and I don't want him to be known as a trans kid. I want him to be known as who he is. If he chooses to disclose at some point, okay. You know, but he's known as a trans kid to people that knew him when he was Renee. There's no getting around that. But new people don't, and I'm not going to out him. I'm not going to out him, and he knows that because their safety is your primary concern. So do what you can to make sure. Right. Right. His story. Do what you can to make them feel safe and keep them safe.
I get it. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your and Sam's story.
Oh, my pleasure.
And tell Sam I hope he approves and I didn't screw up too bad.
You're fine.
Oh, gracious. And listeners, I hope that you got plenty of good information. And I will have the replay and all the information on my website at www.lovecoachjourney.com/Sam. How about that?
Love it.
And it'll be right there. Feel free to share the link. And listeners, I'll be with you next time on Ready for Love Radio.